welcome everybody. Thank you, grazie mille Tiziano, for this invitation to Siena to talk about music, well, in this case, audio platforms and audio remediations. I feel, while I listen Robert, really connected with the presentation. I'm going to place similar quotes even, but I have a bit different focus. I also will talk about invisible actors, intermediaries, infrastructures, and what happened with the transformation and the remediation of the music industry. To situate, or even more, I like to talk about audio industry normally. My idea, and I based on this original digital, we can talk about utopia, no? About what happened with this disintermediation of the music industry, for example. If we go like 20 years ago, when SoulSeek started, and when Napster started now close to 20 years ago. So you are very young, but we are a bit less young. And I remember when Napster appears and we talk about the disintermediation of the music industry, well, where the fans could connect directly with the artist without intermediaries, and the artist will be very famous worldwide, and the music companies disappear, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, 20 years later, we can see that it's not real. We can see that this disintermediation is more totally intermediation more than before. My point of view is the political economy of media, and working based on the works of Morris, Spray, Bonini, people like Burkhardt, McCourt, also based on the audience work from people like Philip Napoli or Turov, and also based on the works from data, media, and culture theory, people like Arsenault, Manovic, Boyd, or Stone. But first of all, Tiziano defined really well the idea of platform, and I think that if we think what is a platform, specifically focus on the idea of music, we have this first idea that finally the platform is a space where the content right negotiation is basic. Finally, the platforms negotiate with the other intermediaries, the aggregators, especially sometimes with the directly with the big music labels, the three big, Sony, Warner, and Universal, and they establish the access conditions to this content. You can go into a platform, you can download the music, or you can subscribe for a streaming service. You can pay or not, because you have all the possibility to access to the content with the advertising support. You can, and in this case, you offer your data. You are the commodity of the platform. The audience is the commodity of the platform. Sometimes you can establish, or normally, finally, you are paying and you are the data, so you are in two different markets, first as client and then as a commodified audience. I mean, when we talk about traditional media in television, in open television, commercial television, or radio, we are the commodity as audience. I think in this case, in Dallas Smythe theory, in platform we are the clients because we are paid, but at the same time we are the commodity as audience. And also these platforms establish some partnerships with other actors of the industry. We can think in how, and we will see now, how the music and audio platforms connect, for example, with radio stations, with ISPs, with internet service providers, or with Eventbrite, a platform of ticketing, for example. So what is the main difference between the platforms and the previous platforms, because I think that the idea of platforms, finally we have other platforms before. I think that the media conglomerates are platform in different ways, because normally you can pay for a cable TV, you can be commodified as access, and they try to summarize the data of the audience, trying to commodify this data. So I think that the 20th century media are platforms. They control access and information. And finally, this is a platform. Audio mediation generates data. I'm thinking that historically, the audio generates data around that, the radio charts, the music charts, the audience surveys. And the 21st century platforms introduce new variables. Real-time data connected with previous data. I mean, basically, the most important difference for me is that they establish, or they are connecting in real time with the audience activity, but also they have all the previous activity of these audiences. And sometimes connected, of course, with the partnerships. For example, to have an account on Spotify, I remember perfectly, because this changed the story of Spotify in 2008, when they connect with Facebook. And when Spotify connect with Facebook, Spotify have much more information about you and about us than just the music that we listen. If the previous industries of media, of mediation, are global, I think that the current industries are much more global and concentrated. I mean, normally the big three was the big six, and also we have the independent labels in different countries. These independent labels are more focused on local content sometimes, and sometimes are more powerful. For example, if we go to Spain in the 1970s, and maybe in Italy is similar, if you go to the music chart, you have music from 15 or more record labels. And I studied that, and in 1978, in the music chart of Spain, we have 15 labels. 40 years later, we have 3 labels in the top 100 top. They control the most important music around the world, and it's much more concentrated. And connected with that, we have the issue of the regulation. The music industry had before the possibility, and especially the public policies have the possibility to regulate the music industry and the music sector more with the policies around media, especially. And we have the example, for example, of France or Canada with an important public policies around that. And now it's much more difficult to regulate, as we can see, the big platforms. So finally, what is the main connection between the previous platforms and the new platforms? The idea of control of information and access. And what is the main difference, I think? I think that the main difference is the new platforms establish new enclosures. We can talk about the digital enclosures in this case. I like, for example, the main tag of the podcasting is enclosure, where is the direction that you can download the audio MP3. And this is connected with the idea of the enclosures of the 19th century, but in a digital way. This is OCDE, the Organization for Cooperation and Development. They talk about the big data ecosystem. A big data ecosystem where we have the platforms, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, LinkedIn, Instagram, the IT infrastructure providers, analytical software and cloud computing, the public sector, especially with government, statistic departments, the OCDE, for example, the European Union, the consumers here connected with all, content providers, and the sellers. And we see different flux of information and of money. We have free services, data attention, public services, data taxes, data money, products and services. Based on this big data ecosystem, I'm trying to reorganize what happened with the value of the data generated by the audio. And I have some ideas. For example, if we talk about the content providers, we have here the music labels, the radio stations, the users, the podcasters. In platforms, we should add Spotify, TuneIn, YouTube, Pandora. We talk about sellers, also repeat some platforms and sellers are similar. Spotify, Amazon, Pandora, TuneIn. And I add to this ecosystem one thing that I think that is very, very important. And normally we don't talk about that. First of all, the ISPs, the telecommunication companies. The telecommunication companies are finally the main providers of audio, historically. And in the current context, are the main player. Over the ISPs, we receive all the content. If we go, for example, with the connections of the platforms like Spotify, Deezer, Apple Music, they try to connect in all the countries with the ISPs to introduce their services. Also, the benefits of the circulation of music and audio, the most benefits are for the ISPs. And in this case, it's not important if it's free or you pay. The content circulate bothly. And also, I think that there are other players, very important, the data centers, we will talk about them later, the datification services that Robert mentioned before, and we can talk in this case about the aggregators, we can talk about the Cobalt, for example, a company of datification of audio and music, but also the devices. What happened with the devices? What happened with that? This is the gramophone of the 21st century. Who is the owner? In the history of the music industry, the owners of the devices are the leaders historically. The origin of the RCA, the RCA, are devices, constructors, enterprises. The owners of Edison, first companies, was the owners of the devices. So what happened with the devices? Of course, the smartphones owners, and in this case, we have Apple, but I think that there are much more important the ASEAN devices. They have much more power now. Samsung, Huawei, all the different ASEAN devices companies. And also we have other devices. For example, we will talk during this presentation about the artificial intelligence speakers, about the television devices that are also music devices now. Based on that, we have the clearly intermediaries, the traditional intermediaries we have in this value chain of the music and the audio. We have the producer, the distributors, the sellers, and the consumers. But I like these two definitions. First, the intermediaries in this case, that Robert talked before, and I also we have the idea of the invisible actors. Invisible actors that are finally the main infrastructures, the ISPs, the APIs, the companies that control the circulation of data. Because these are, and if we go to a global map and we see where are these invisible actors normally are concentrated in, not in many places. We have a lot of, in the case of Europe, we have a lot of data centers, for example, in Frankfurt, in London, and we have a lot of data centers in the United States, and they control the circulation of information in general. Also, if we go, for example, what happened with the ISPs, in the case of Spain, and trying to see the connections between the different ISPs, we can see that the three main players, Amazon, no? Telefonica, Vodafone, and Orange. In the three players, we can see that BlackRock, that is a fund of inversion, have money in these three companies. So we have connections between the three main ISPs. Based on that, I'm going to talk now about some new relations and some new fundamental actors. Robert talked before about the aggregator. The aggregator is the digital distributor. These that control the access to the platforms. Finally, if you want to have your music or your audio in a platform, you need to have an aggregator. And this is the dashboard that has a company of music. This is from a Spanish company that is Altafonte. Altafonte, they are starting, by the way, in Milano soon, a new office, but it's a multinational operator. They are trying to be the great Ibero-American operator. They have offices in Miami, in Brazil, in Chile, also, of course, in Madrid, and they are opening now in Italy. So you have here where is the music is playing. You have here the type of use, streaming, full track, songs, albums. You have here, if you have different labels connected, the artist, the most important products, the songs, and the genre, and of course by months and by zone. You have a lot of information. As Robert talked before, it's not only a question of data. As I always think and say, all the people have the data. Now, and a small company have this data, and the big company also have this data. So the issue is not the data. The issue should be connected normally with the issue of power. And because if you have data but you don't have money, you can sign a big artist. And if you have a small artist that suddenly is a big artist, the big label will take you. I think that there is an important issue that our actions are totally tracked now. We are fully tracked by the different platforms. In our mobile phone, in our smartphone, we have more than 9 sensors. And we are continually tracked in our activity. I want to think, and this presentation evolution in this way, in the idea of what happened with the audio interactions, or with the interactions around the audio and how they generate data. This is a research, because normally when we talk about live music, he talks about one idea that I don't thought, that is based on the faces of the people, we can have their mood during the show. But for example, this is a research from Artigues, from a department of the Pompeu Fabra, and they work in sonar, trying to say they have the data of the mobile phones of some people that are in the sonar, that they give the data of the phone, and they track the activity of the people during the festival. So finally, they know the flux of people, the flows of people from the different concerts, where they stop more time, where are they more focused. And in this photo, we have one of the last trends in the last years, that is the wristbands, connected wristbands. So they have now the festivals, the music festivals has the data. They know exactly, because this is especially for to pay the alcohol or the beer. And they know also with these wristbands, where you go into a different space, when you change from a space during the festival, they track you, and they know where are your favorite artists, what is your favorite rum, beer, or whiskey, and they are follow you during all the festival. One of the problems, and I talked with some of the festival managers, is they have a big amount of data, but they don't want to know what to do with this data. And this is a very expensive device, so they are thinking what to do in the next years with this. But I think that finally we are talking about the live music commodification more than paying a ticket. Connected with that, we have, for example, this is Spotify and the connection with Eventbrite. And this is very important because this is, I know this connection 2 weeks ago in a conference about ticketing. And they told me, no, Eventbrite is in Silicon Valley. And they have the possibility to connect with Spotify. The local ticketing players don't have this possibility. So finally, we are talking about global connections in the idea to commodify the listening on Spotify. On this idea that he explained before, okay, I have a lot of listeners, but they could pay for a concert or not. Other intermediaries, big intermediaries, the music identification services, as SASAM. SASAM was bought by Apple 3 months ago. So finally, we can see one more integration between these data generation services and the big platforms. Robert talked before about others. We had before other examples like Spotify when they bought a company of analysis of data. Connected with that, previous examples that are active now, to quantify the audience, we have the portable people meter that is working now in the markets of Canada and United States. And this is a device that listens your activity, especially listen what are you doing with radio and television, and it generation data is the new way to do surveys, and they know what are you listening now. Maybe in Europe, I think that this device is more difficult to develop it because the law of protection, data protection law, but maybe we will see in the markets soon, I don't know. And because are expensive, of course. Other places where the audio generate data and generates circulation of audio is, of course, the over-the-top apps and the audio distribution. And I'm thinking here in WhatsApp and Skype. Each day that we use the vocal service of WhatsApp, we are generating data, we are generating new flows of information that gives these applications a lot of information about us. And I'm thinking of in this, and goes to the end, because we are now give a lot of audio information more than before in the history. I mean, this is the WhatsApp, this is the place where we can manage our Google Voice and audio activity. What's safe in your voice and audio activity. Google records your voice and other audio plus a few seconds before when you use audio activations like, okay, Google, saying a command or taping the microphone. If you go to your activity in Google and connecting with your phone, you can see what information have Google about you, what audio information have Google about you. So we have finally the idea that we are connected with these devices. I like the idea of ubiquitous devices. And the devices are ubiquitous like the music that is also ubiquitous. Smart devices are electronic tools capable of operating interactively and autonomously. They are usually networked. The term may actually refer to many different types of pieces of electronic equipment. So we have these devices around us. The case of the TV, the Samsung TVs that are listening us, the AI speakers that also are attracting audio from us. And if we connect the smartphones, the TVs, the artificial intelligence speakers, this is the Alexa, the Echo from Amazon with our friend Alexa that plays the music or the radio or the audiobook that we like to listen. If we connect these devices with the biometrics, this is from a company of biometrics, Nuance. Voice biometrics goes mainstream. Decoding the biology, technology, and myths behind the voice authentication. There are other companies that goes to the emotions. This is Beyond Verbal, emotion analytics company based on our discourses. So they are, this is, finally the trend is that they are trying to commodify all our activity. I have a bit distance over these companies. I mean, and one of the things that I think that around the big data and the data, the companies try to establish a new technological determinism where the data could use for all. And I think that this is also a marketing tool, I think, more than the real. And because it's not only the technology. Netflix is trying to use this in the same way. So in a new book about platforms, also Cherry Lippold talk about the emotions and the ideas of turning the atoms into bits, the emotions as atoms. And to close this, I want to finish with this value chain, the new value chain of data that I'm working in this value chain based on audio interactions. We have here the audio, the human actions. We listen audio, we walk, we speak, we buy, we dance, we run, we interact with our hands. And these interactions generates and produce data based on the devices, the sensors of the different devices, the mic, the camera, the speakers, the PPN, the wearable technology. We have the other intermediaries, the software intermediaries with the operating system and the apps, other producers of data, the social media, the platforms, the e-commerce, the ISPs. Who compile this? The traditional metrics, the data centers, the music aggregators, the radio app aggregators, the datification services, and the ISPs again, that distribute and compile this data. And finally, who access to this data? Of course, the radio stations, the record labels, the media outlets, the sponsors, the platforms. But what happened with citizens and what happened with the creators? They have access to this data. It's more difficult to know if we can access to this data as we know all the days. So, finishing, close to the 30 minutes that Tiziano gave me, some of the conclusions. The audio circulation creates a new value chain around data. If historically the audience has been a value based on the exposure and its commodification as consumers, then the new digital paradigm expands the value as users with a continuous tracking of the audio-related activity. Physical activities as run, dance, or speak are being commodified, but we should follow the role of the emotions. The connected capitalism creates a lot of information based on the social relations and the sort of capitalism and a sort of capitalism of the emotions. If we consider the new developments as voice biometrics or company like Beyond Verbal Connected, with new devices, as the artificial intelligence speakers, we are in a new audience commodification stage. And finally, and considering this new value chain, we need to evaluate the role of the commons, the pro-commons, and the state in this scenario. The graphic of the OCDE present the states as users of the services, as users of the data. But we need to reevaluate the European public policies to introduce these new logics. We could talk about public platforms or aggregators based on the commons, logics. Okay, the discussion is open. Thank you. Wow, I forget one thing before go. This is one of the main invisible actors in the world. And we have a connection today, a big connection between Spotify, Believe, that is an aggregator, Airbnb, Vice, Netflix, and this is TCB. TCB is the most powerful invisible actor in the world. They are investor, worldwide investor that have actions in Spotify, Believe, Netflix, Spotify, Airbnb, Vice, SeatGeek, and is the main invisible actor in the world. Thank you. Now, yes.